this is yours truly, that malware guy, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, please click that subscribe button, and I hope you enjoy this juicy video. All joking aside, this isn't malware or exploit related, but rather concerning to child safety and, how to kind of, make sure your digital footprint doesn't get out there. You know what I mean? Alright, so listen. Family posts are not so harmless, okay? Picture this, right? It's 7:45 a.m. You just got the backpack packed, the lunch made, her hair braided or his hair braided, whatever, boy or girl, doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Your kid is standing on the porch, with a little, chalkboard sign. This is first day of second grade, Miss Rogers' class. You know what I mean? It seems pretty innocent. You know what I mean? Lincoln Elementary, here we go. You know what I mean? Something like that, for example. Okay, you snap the photo. It's adorable. You post it. 50 likes roll in. 50 likes roll in. Before you can even finish your coffee. That is nice. You know what I mean? The rush of energy you must feel. But it, it feels harmless. It feels like the love in your heart. And it's love. You know what I mean? You like the photo. You love the photo. It's adorable, right? But let's talk about what that photo actually hands over to the internet and, like Facebook, wherever you post it. What this hands over, okay? Most of us are never, taught to think about it this way, okay? Look at everything you've packed in that single picture: your child's full name, their age or grade, their teacher's name, the school they attend. Complete location, that's not a cute photo anymore. That's a locator. You know what I mean? That's unsafe. Okay? Unsafe. So proud of my brave little girl. You know what I mean? Even if it's like a caption like that, still, you know what I mean? And, it might just be like a comment thread, full of, friends or whatever, tagging the kid by name. And now but you realize you've built a public profile of a real specific child in a real specific place at a real time. Every single, weekday morning. You know what I mean? So you wouldn't, you know what I mean? You wouldn't walk up to a stranger on the street, hand him an index card that says, "This is Emma. She's 7. She goes to Lincoln Elementary. She's in Mrs. Rogers' class. She'll be standing outside the building at 7:55 a.m." That would feel insane, wouldn't it? That would feel a little insane. You know what I mean? But that's functionally what a public first day school post does. Except instead of handing it to a stranger, you're handing it to anyone who can see your profile, or plus anyone who shared it. And something that happens is archiving. Archiving is the act of, taking a video and, saving it to like a giant archive. Like there's the Internet Archive, like the YouTube Archive. Most are done by bots, some done by humans, but the saying is, whatever you post on the internet stays on the internet. That's just how it works, and that's how it always will be. You know what I mean? But even if your page is private, for example, if your page is private, it doesn't mean it's private from strangers. You know what I mean? It just means it's private from people you haven't approached. But it doesn't mean you're safe. A few realities, here's a few, possibilities. Friend requests get accepted, from people we technically know, but don't really know. Old classmates, a friend of a friend, someone's mom, we met it twice. You know what I mean? Example. You know what I mean? Example. Screenshots don't respect privacy settings. Once something is seen, they can be saved, forwarded, reposted with zero effort, which is, what I brought up, like your whole, archiving matter or whatever the fuck. And another thing is accounts get hacked. Old passwords got reused. A private account today can, easily become a public leak tomorrow. You know what I mean? That's just the sad part about, data breaches and, exploits. It's less common with things like, Facebook or TikTok, but again, it can still happen, sadly. Kids grow up with, inherit a digital footprint, they've never consented to. Every photo, location, detail becomes a part of a permanent record that they didn't choose to create. Privacy settings are, say like this, a lock on the door. They're not guaranteed, they don't guarantee that nobody ever gets in. Because you can easily just unlock the lock or, kick the fucking door down. You know what I mean? But another thing is predators, like child EDPs and, PDF files, they don't need much. But this is the uncomfortable part. But it's the part that matters most.
people who, mean harm aren't looking into hacking anything. You know what I mean? They're mostly just, I wouldn't say they're harmless. I wouldn't say they're harmless. They do a lot of damage, but they're not looking into hacking or brute forcing into your Facebook account. They're not doing anything technical at all. They're scrolling, they're piecing together patterns, from parents post proudly and publicly, like the school name, mascot, first day photos, etc. You know what I mean? Like the soccer schedule, so grandma can watch from out of town or whatever. You know what I mean? The daily "we're at the park by 4" check in. I don't really see a lot of that happening, but with the school things and like the first day picture photos, too revealing information. But I see a lot of that. I don't really see it at the "we're at the park by 4" check in a lot. But a birthday post, that says like a child's full name and exact birth date. You know what I mean? Such as "big girl first sleepover with her mom and dad tonight." That post, it tells the world exactly where that child is, gonna be. You know what I mean? But even, you know what I mean? Like, individually, each one of these posts feels innocent. You know what I mean? They feel innocent. You post them, you feel a sense of warmth and comfort, but really, it's far from that. They form a schedule, location, routine. This is exactly what someone with bad intentions is looking for, and you built them into it, for free, out of love. Which is, it sounds kind of crazy when you say it like that, but, again, while we're on the topic of, like birthdays, here's one that never gets talked about. You know what I mean? The birthday party post, okay? Like, for example, you're excited, you're proud, you want everyone to see the bounce house, the unicorn cake, the post that's like, so, Emma's turning whatever. You know what I mean? Emma's turning 8, Emma's turning 10, etc. You know what I mean? Or she'd be turning 7. At Sunshine Park, for example, at like 2 p.m. Saturday, come celebrate with us. You know what I mean? Read that again, the way a stranger would. You just published your child's name, age, and exact public location, where she'll be at, and the next time window. You know what I mean? Days in advance with an open invitation. A public park isn't a gated venue with, a guest list. Anyone could walk up. You didn't mean to post, it inherent. Oh my god, I cannot speak today. You didn't mean to post it that way, but that's exactly what it is. The safer version, of the same joy. Post photos afterwards. The party is over and everyone's already home safe. When, where in a group text or a private invite app, sent only to the people are actually coming. You know what I mean? So here's what a digital footprint actually means for all you little people who don't know what it means, like grandmas or Facebook moms, TikTok moms, etc. So, you may hear this phrase a lot, especially by me and my little goofy ass. But, and it can sound, abstract, like something only tech people would need to worry about, but it's not abstract. It's simple. Every photo, tag, comment, location, check in you post about your child becomes a permanent, searchable, copyable piece of their identity that gets leaked. Rather, they want it or not. And everybody has done this. Everyone has left a digital footprint or like a digital breadcrumb to them. Even the most secure of people leave a digital footprint. It's inevitable. You're going to do it. You're going to slip up one time or this time, you know what I mean? But I wouldn't necessarily call it, OPSEC, trying to protect it. But protecting your, digital footprint and making sure too much information isn't released is important. Because, again, you don't want bad actors or, little people with their little cameras or AI image editing tools to, do something bad, for example. You know what I mean? Think of it like footprints in wet cement. Instead of footprints in sand, sand washes away. Cement sets in. That once, once that first day of school photo or that birthday party address or "we're on vacation in this cabo" post is out there, it doesn't disappear when you delete it. It's already been, seen, possibly saved. Like I said, indexed, archived, etc. You know what I mean? Usually done by bots. You know what I mean? But it's archived somewhere you'll probably never know by the time your child is old enough to have an opinion about their own privacy. The internet, the internet? Did I just say internet? Oh my god, I cannot speak. The internet may already have, hold of thousands of data points. You know what I mean? about, like your child or your grandchild, your aunt, your, like, not your aunt, what the hell, your niece, your nephew, etc. You know what I mean? And, they had zero say in the creating of it. That's the digital footprint. You're not just sharing a moment, you're building a permanent file in real time on a person that can't even consent to that yet, which is a bit fucked up. You know what I mean? Once you think of it that way. But we need to get into some dangerous, dangerous territory. Okay, nobody wants to think about this. Okay, and that's exactly why it needs to be said aloud. Instead of a left as a it's supposed to be a vague fear left in the back of your mind. Posting a consistent public pattern of your child's name, school, routine, physical location makes them, in a pretty, it makes them pretty predictable and a very vulnerable target. This isn't it isn't about, oh my god, fuck, I cannot speak English, help me out here. This isn't about living in fear. It's about understanding that, stalking and abduction, cases involve around strangers. Yeah, they're rare, but when they do happen, they are rarely random. They typically follow, like a period of surveillance or stalking, where a person watches and learns the routine and picks their moment. Public social media posts do a huge amount of that surveillance work without the person ever having to leave their couch. A parent posting at gymnastics every day or Tuesday studio name, you know what I mean, isn't handing over a one-time detail. They're handing over a recurring schedule. That is like the single most valuable piece of information on someone to build a pattern. The same logic applies to like non-custodial parents and in a custody dispute or a fucking family member or whatever, or anyone that may not want tracking of a child's whereabouts. A public post doesn't discriminate about who's looking. So you may think it's just relatives or this or that, but if a post is out there, it's going to stay out there. So, and again, and again, and again. Listen, the AI risks parents haven't heard of yet, or most parents at least. This is a fairly new layer of danger that you need to watch out for, and regarding posting pictures of your children or photos at the beach, etc. But most parents, generally have not been warned about this. AI image tools can, take, they're fairly normal. Fully clothed photo of a child, and it's nice. You know what I mean? Like you may post a child on the beach or whatever in a little bikini of your child, of course, of your child. But it can get bad very, very fast, and it's not hard to do. There's like deep fakes or whatever, but predators, pedophiles, and just fucking sickos out there will use AI, image, generation, mainly uncensored, you know what I mean, to generate fake sexual or exploitative images of that child or of your child. This is a real growing form of abuse, and law enforcement agencies, including the FBI, like the fucking, police departments, etc., they've issued public warnings about it, in recent years. It doesn't require, you know what I mean? It doesn't require a rare or high quality photo. A regular smiling photo from a birthday party, a swim lesson, a dance fucking party, or something. Ordinary stuff parents would post every week can be enough to source material. Like CSAM, cheese pizza, etc. I'm trying to do this for you guys out there at YouTube. Don't take this video down because I said this. Please, I'm begging. All right, but this means like the calculus around posting videos of your kids. It is fundamentally changed, and it used to be don't post anything embarrassing. Now it's understanding the clear photo of your child's face posted publicly it can potentially be taken and misused by someone you will never meet in a way that has nothing to do with anything of you or your child. You know what I mean? You didn't do anything wrong as a parent. This isn't about parental shame or blame. It's about knowing the landscape has shifted, so you can only make an informed choice instead of making an unaware one. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is the practical response is never to, it's not to like don't post your kids, but it's more to tighten who can actually view the photos. Private accounts, approved followers only, no public hashtags with your kid's face and name attached, and to be extra cautious with your kids' photos, your grandkids' photos, etc. Your child's face, clearly and up close, since those aren't the most useful ways of generating fake content, but, they also can be. It's not just strangers online, it could be identity theft too. You know what I mean? Which is it's not common, especially in like younger people, like children. It's not common, but deepfakes have been made out there. There's been only a few incidences, but it's whatever. You know what I mean? So let me, break it down to you guys what you can do, you know what I mean, to protect yourselves. Alright? Like none of this means stop celebrating your kids. It means celebrate them smarter. Don't post your photos super publicly where they can reveal all of your child's information. You know what I mean? So, I guess post only the first day photos without like the chalkboard sign or or you could just blur out the school name, teacher's name before you post, skip the real time location tag, post the beach photo, the party photo, the vacation photo once you're already home, not while you're still standing there or sitting in your hotel room or your little cabin out in the forest, which I I don't okay. I'm just thinking of shit now. But keep, birthday party addresses, times, venue names out of public posts. Send the details privately to people you've actually invited over things like Telegram, Telegram or Signal, or you could just message their phone number. You don't necessarily have to use Messenger or text now. You don't have to use social media to do that. You can just send them a simple tweet or a text. I said tweet. I'm stupid. But, like keep the names, birth dates, school names, off public posts entirely. Save that level of detail for a text between a private group chat with people you know and trust. Set reoccurring, activities, sports, dance lessons, to not be posted in real time or with a venue tagged. A weekly public schedule is, like the easiest thing in the world to memorize. You know what I mean? So set your account to private if you're going to post anything, like super duper sensitive. But again, that always can't be guaranteed for safety. So, ooh, you know what I mean? But, review your follower list to make sure everyone, is people, you actually know. Trim anyone you don't. Be extra thoughtful with clear, like close up face, photos, posted publicly. Given how AI tools can be misused, private accounts drastically shrink. Who can grab that in the first place? You know what I mean? So ask yourself this one question before you hit share. If a stranger who wanted to find or misuse a photo of my child or my grandchild only saw this post, what would they do now? What would they do since they have access to it? The answer is too fucking much. So crop it, blur it, delay it, or don't post it. That's your best bet. Talk to grandma. Talk to the aunts. Talk to whoever, posts about your kids. Privacy only works if everyone with access to your child follows the same rule as you do. So, loving your kids and protecting your kids are not in competition. You can be, proud of your child. You can share the milestones. You can let the internet see how much joy this tiny little human brings to you without handing over a map of, where they'll be, where they're standing tomorrow. You know what I mean? A little bit of caution, now it costs you nothing. It's a habit, not a sacrifice. And honestly, it's one of the most simplest ways to make sure the only people, finding your kid are people that you actually want to, such as family members, people you actually trust, and the child knows. Well, with this being said, I think we had a nice, 20-minute conversation. My name is that malware guy. Stay safe out there, especially to you Facebook moms. Stop posting your child, and don't stop posting your child. Okay, but make it so you share no personal information. Guess that's what I'm getting at. But you guys have a wonderful, wonderful night, day, evening, wherever you guys are at. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Stay up, stay blessed. That malware guy is out, baby.